You know the West. You know the Warriors. When I was thinking, Matt, watching this game tonight, I thought the way they cut and move, is it a Steph thing? Because usually in sports, Matt, when something's great, people duplicate it. They rip it off. Nobody looks like the Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody moves like the Warriors.
Right.
Nobody cuts like the Warriors. And I come back to, well, shit, it just must be Steph. Or is it? In fact, the only times they have problems is when they stop moving. Right. They had that 13-0 Dallas run. When they're moving, it's just impenetrable. Is it just Steph?
No, I definitely think it's a team thing. You know, when I was there, it was constant movement, and you're so worried about the three-point shot that's how they're so effective in the paint, because you always have to, hedge on these screens, or if Klay or Steph are coming off, show or double team, and they get so many slips. But, Colin, what's interesting to me in a day and age where, dribbling's at a premium and everyone wants to go one-on-one and do what they do, the Warriors are the exact opposite. At the end of the clock, normally if you look at Dallas, the ball's going to be in Luka's hands when they call, when they call red is, under 5 seconds, you got to go. With the Warriors, they continue to move and get a good shot. Even if it's with like 0.6 on the clock, they'll still get that extra pass to turn down a good shot and get a great shot. And I think that's what makes them so scary. Although Steph can go one-on-one as a James Harden, as a Kyrie Irving, as other guys in this league do. But I feel like he gets more success off his movement and everyone's ability to kind of continue to move. And it's just almost like pick your poison, to think that Steph was the 5th leading scorer in the game, in a closeout game, and they won by double digits. I mean, there's not another team that can have their leading scorer be the 5th scorer in a closeout game and even be close in the game. And this team wins by double digits with Steph being the 5th leading scorer in a closeout game in the Western Conference Finals.
Coming off an injury is really hard. The only injury I ever had, I had a motorcycle crash as a kid, and I can remember my parents making me get back on the bike. And they're like, you just got to get back on. And,
right.
So when you're in rehab, and you've been in rehab before, you come in rehab, and it's not really a physical battle. It's a psychological battle to pivot, to turn, and I almost felt like in the last 3 games, it's like I visually saw Klay, like just that something hit, something clicked. Now, again, maybe it's just because he played so well tonight. But talk a little bit about, if you could, coming off an injury, rehabbing, the psychology of it. I honestly thought in this series, the second half of this series, I'm like, okay, he's gotten past something upstairs.
I mean, the biggest hurdle coming back from any injury is the mental strength to understand that, okay, if I get knocked off balance, my bad knee or my surgically repaired knee is going to be okay. If I fall awkwardly or land awkwardly on my ankle, my surgically repaired ankle, so on and so forth. The hardest thing to do from an injury is come back and really trust that. And then you add that the kid, the guy missed 940 days, of basketball. So, he's really been back 5 months after missing 2.5 years of basketball. So, that's why I predicted at the very beginning of the season, depending on what Klay Thompson comes back, Golden State was my pick, because I had a feeling that, he's going to do what he needs to come back. He's not a guy that lives above the rim. He's a very smart player. So I knew athleticism, he wasn't really worried about that, because he can still get his shot off. But, Klay is really, to me, still working his way back into shape. And one thing about this team, too, if you think about it, they haven't necessarily played. I think they showed peaks in this Western Conference about how good this team can be, but they've been very up and down throughout the playoffs. And to think the first 2 rounds, very up and down, you find yourself in the Western Conference Finals. Normally, in the NBA, we want to be peaking at the right time. Although, they won 5 in a row at the end of the season, but they were 6-4. At the end of the season. So normally teams want to peak at that point going into the playoffs. The crazy part is I think the Warriors are starting to peak right now, which is weird. Like I said, you want to peak going into the playoffs, but these guys are peaking going into the finals. That's why I think they're going to be really hard to beat next round.
Ron Adams is a really good defensive coach on that staff. And
my God.
Is it? Yeah, it's Ron Adams, right? I got it right? Yeah. I swear to God, he used to be a Fresno State coach. I don't know why that sticks in my mind. For some point, he's a well-traveled guy. But I saw a stat the other that Golden State, since Steve Kerr took over, is #1 in the league in opponents' field goal percentage. And we view them as an offensive juggernaut. But, man, they threw early in this series so many looks at Luka. Like, he was off.
Yeah.
So when you were there, so you can't be good at defense without practicing it. Some of you guys you're all gifted offensively. You guys can all do your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel like the Warriors' defense, it's so intellectual. They can throw so many looks at you 4 times up the court. It's 4 different looks. Like, you got to be so smart. Like, take me inside that.
I think everything they do is contagious, whether it be offense or defense. And the one thing I really liked when I was there for, half the season in 2017, we won a championship was, we go back and watch our edits. Draymond will stop the film and talk. Klay will say stuff. Iguodala would say stuff. Sean Livingston would say stuff. Steph would say stuff. So it's really kind of almost, although Steve Kerr's the coach and there's a lot of high respect for him, these guys are all really high IQ guys. You know what I mean? And the one thing that's rare about this team is when I was there, obviously KD was there. There were so many different superstars and personalities, but all that was left at the door. When you come into practice or when you come into a game, you just want to buy in because everyone is buying in. The stars are buying in. The role players are buying in. So you're almost like, like a sore thumb if you don't buy into whatever it is, whether it's continuing to screen and move offensively, if it's making a second or third effort on the defensive end, if it's, whatever the coverage is, whatever the principles are. It's just such an amazing environment. Hats off to management because to me, everything starts at the top, but it's such an amazing environment that you just want to come in and completely give yourself to whatever's asked upon you that day.
Yeah, that's great. Listen, you were good friends with Jared Goff, but it's a business. It happens. Mel Kiper once told me that Matt Stafford was one of the only quarterbacks he'd ever seen that could have gone high school to the pros. You could have put him on a roster, had him back up, grow up, mature. What was the first pass Stafford threw to you in practice that you were like, whoa? I mean, it's Matt Scott. Yeah. Like, he could be a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. Like, it's rare. It's top 4 or 5 in the league. Could you hear it? Hear the spin? Was there a moment you were like, this dude's got an arm?
Yeah. You know what's funny? He's bringing this up. I hadn't thought about this, but probably the play that happened during OTAs probably a year ago to the day almost, that it was like the light went on, like, oh, that is what makes this guy great, is it the exact same play that we ran that he no-looked in the Super Bowl. It was honestly the first, that was the first time where I went back. I felt what he had done. I think he might have just no-looked that one. And I went back and watched on film, and seeing him manipulate people underneath and do what he did with his eyes and being able to throw the ball that he did, it was literally on the exact same play that he no-looked in the Super Bowl. When he had that great one on that last drive. It was literally the exact same play. But yeah, that was the moment where it's like, this guy has something that is different. He's not a quarterback that's reactive. The saying, take what the defense gives you. A lot of the times that's true. He also understands how to say, no, I'm going to dictate where this ball is going and move the people and make sure that I can make the throw that I want to make. That's going to be the big play.
That throw against Tampa, Cooper, like literally the boat's losing water. Like, I'm sitting there watching going, guys, come on, get it together. It's like one of those NBA runs. Somebody hit a basket.
I know.
So you, on that play, was that going to be, I'm throwing it to you, period? Or was he watching the break? Because that really was the play of the season for you at that point.
You're saying the last play against Tampa, the deep ball?
Yep.
Down the middle of the field. Yeah, so that play wasn't even called for me. That play was called for Van Jefferson running a little dagger route. I was going to try to occupy the deep safety, try to pull out some guys running down the middle of the field, and Van Jefferson was running a little widened dagger in cut at like 20 yards. I was coming in there, and the ball was going to be coming to him, and we're going to try to get up there, spike the ball, and get one more play. And they end up sliding into that zero late, don't quite hit it how they want to. I feel a safety slide over, and I just hit it and hope that Matthew was going to be able to get that thing up. And what Matthew did, what's not appreciated on that play, Matthew be able to see zero, buy enough time, and he put the ball up when I was about 12, 13 yards down the field, but it wasn't caught until about 40 or 40 plus yards down the field. For him to put the air on it that he needed to allow me to, catch that in stride, as long as I was running down the field. It was an incredible throw on his part.
So you're not, a lot of receivers are big personalities, and I've always theorized that you're the first to break the huddle. It's sort of the only position in football that is a little individual. And I think to myself, Cooper Kupp, you have like a linebacker personality. Was there something that did attract you to the individual nature? Was it maybe your dad was a quarterback and you're making all the catches? Because you said you wanted to be a running back at one point.
Yeah, well, I did. I grew up playing running back. My body, obviously, I still had. I got into high school, I still dreamed of playing running back, but the body just developed differently. Obviously, I kind of was limited in my options there. But I've always just thought, I've always appreciated about football that it is a team sport. It is the greatest team sport in the entire world. And receiver, you're right. Receiver is probably one of the more individual positions, but it relies on 10 other guys to do their job to perfection. All 5 linemen have to pick up the blitz, have to pick up the rush. Quarterback's got to be great with his progression. Running back has to know if he's got any kind of pressure coming, he's got to be able to get back into his, progress into his route to be able to pull coverage. The other receivers that are on the field have to distribute the field the right way. All this has to happen before I get even an opportunity to make a play. So, I've got a great appreciation for me to be able to do what I do. There's 10 other guys that have to do their job at a very high level. And that's what makes this game so good. And so that's why I've got so much appreciation. When I'm asked to block, and I'm asked to pass block, when I'm asked to run block, I'm just another cog in that machine for someone else. And so I've just got so much appreciation for what it takes to be effective as an offense and be able to make this thing go so we can put points up on the board and win games.
Well, I mean, you are a blocking receiver as well. But there is a difference between blocking somebody from, Fresno State and the NFC West. Have you ever had a blocking assignment and thought, all right, this is not going great? Who's the strongest guy you've ever put your hands on?
Well, I've had to, I've had to block Jadeveon Clowney off the edge. I've had to block Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack, actually 2 years ago when he was with Chicago, Khalil Mack, I had to block him on the backside a couple times. And there's one play where he grabs me. It was kind of a cutoff block. I wasn't like straight up with him, but I kind of had a cutoff. I cut him off pretty good. And he got me, and he was this close to choke slamming me, and I was able, at the last second, I felt it. He was about to come. I just yelled, Khalil, and he luckily pulled off because he was laughing afterwards. But he had a chance to really do some damage to me. But there's been some guys that I've had to block that are great in this league. But I've also learned some good stuff from our tackles and the guys that have taught me a few little techniques to be able to weasel my way into losing with dignity in some situations.
It's interesting. When OBJ came to the Rams, he was really effective in that Super Bowl. He was also really effective immediately. Do you ever, whether it's Robert Woods or OBJ, do you ever watch other guys on film, Coop, and you're just like, I'm going to borrow that, like footwork and angle. Like, do you still, like OBJ, if I said to you, what do you see when you watch OBJ as a receiver?
His patience at the top of the routes, his ability to, no matter what happens, if he loses his release, his ability to be patient enough and trust that the depth of his route and the timing in which he's going to come open within the progression of wherever the play is, his ability to understand that and understand that the patience at the top of the route is going to allow him to win still. It's the biggest thing about Odell. He plays with such confidence and such patience. That's a great thing. That's the position. It is an art form because it's not about just how fast you can run. It's getting open at the right time as well, being in the right place at the right time. And, his ability to get to the top of routes and, understanding how to use his eyes to manipulate guys, face freezing guys. He did an incredible job at that. So, and certainly I want to grab things from guys as much as I possibly can. I said it, receiver is an art form. I want to grab as much as I can from other people. It's not all going to work. I can't do the things that Calvin Johnson did. There's some Andrew Hawkins has some stuff that he does that I couldn't do, but grabbing little pieces from each guy and being able to say, how many tools can I add to my utility belt? How many things can I have up, week in and week out to be able to allow me to win? I'm all about that.